Welcome to another fun-filled weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, first right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. Videos drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, videos drop every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube at WARR Media. You can follow our podcast, the audio version of this program. The audio drops every Tuesday and Saturday. Once again, every Tuesday and Saturday, the audio drops at War on Anchor. Once again, at WARR on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com. And you can follow us on all social media platforms, including right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube at War Media. Thank you in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And remember, we are unapologetically fun. Lakeena, let's kick this episode off with talking about the NFL's charter franchise. I'm talking about the Chicago Bears. Thursday, they put in a bid to purchase the property for the Arlington International Racecourse in Arlington Heights, Illinois. Just in case you guys don't know, for those of you listening and watching outside the Chicagoland area, Arlington Heights is a suburb that's located northwest of Chicago, Illinois. Here's a statement from President and CEO, what a joke, Ted Phillips from Thursday. Quote, we recently submitted a bid to purchase the Arlington International Racecourse property. It's our obligation to explore every possible option to ensure that we're doing what's best for our organization and its future. If selected, the steps allows us to further evaluate the property and its potential, close quote. Lakeena, before we started recording today, we talked about this before we started recording. We mentioned this a couple of months ago when it was a story the first time. Listening to Chicago radio over the last 48 hours or so, you would think, I know it's a big story, I know Chicago's a Bears town, but you would think that this is the first time we heard this story. No, folks, this has been happening recently for the last few months, ever since Arlington International Racecourse said that the property will be put up for sale very soon. Now, I don't know if you caught the article from Thursday from the Daily Herald, but this goes back to the 1975 with the late, great George Halas.
Yep.
And so the Bears been using this negotiating tactic, like all other pro teams do from time to time. They use a smaller city to, we're threatening to move to Jacksonville. We're going to threaten to move to Albuquerque to get where we want. Now, once again, for those of you that are listening and watching outside the Chicagoland area, Soldier Field, where the Bears play right now in downtown Chicago, the city of Chicago, i.e. the Park District, owns that property. And the Bears, I believe they're the only team in the NFL that do not own its own stadium.
It's true.
Like all the other teams do.
Yep.
Of course, you have all these other stadiums like the new Jerry's Dome, as they call it, the new Texas Stadium outside of Dallas. That's Irving, Texas, of course. Santa Clara is where the San Francisco 49ers play. And you have all these other stadiums, I believe, in Glendale with the Arizona Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these new stadiums, including the one up into the northwest of us in Minneapolis. I forgot what the stadium's called, the new one for the Vikings. They hosted a Super Bowl a few years ago, of course, where the Bears are going to open up this upcoming season on Sunday night in September. That's SoFi Stadium for Los Angeles. They're going to host the Super Bowl this season, and they're going to host, I believe, the 2028 Olympics.
Yep.
So I for the business part of it, I understand it. But selfishly, do not want the Bears to move. But the Bears could have solved this many moons ago.
Yeah.
You could have negotiated with the city and said, if you want us to play in the city of Chicago, we'll have to go co-ownership with you guys as far as the ownership rights for the stadium, or let us own it out full right, or we out of here.
Well, and also, too, don't forget, both the Giants and the Jets play in New Jersey. So that's a U.S.-based stadium is when you're talking about, Sid, for the Vikings stadium.
Vikings.
Yeah, so They've been playing that stadium for the last few years. I mean, look, this has been going on for years now. The Daily Herald has done a great job following this story. They've been doing this for like 40 years. You just mentioned, they've been, the Bears have been used this sort of thing as leverage. I mean, look, that stadium, even, Soldier Field, even with the renovations, it still looks terrible. It looks like some people call it a spaceship. In the middle.
Remember, Jay Mariotti said it when it was first built, even though no one showed the pictures yet. But that's a whole other issue.
That's a whole other story for another podcast. I mean, the parking's terrible for anybody that actually has been in Soldier Field. I mean, the parking's terrible. It's not too. Yes. It's very hard to get there. The parking situation is just horrid. And look, I get it. I mean, look, it would have been easier for the Bears if they had just said, you know what, put up a dome or, sort of just totally rehab the stadium so that Chicago can host a Final Four, can host a Super Bowl like their other, Midwest counterparts like Minneapolis and the Pontiac, not Pontiac, but the one in Detroit. So
you're talking about right now, Ford Field?
Yeah, Ford Field in Detroit.
Yeah, that's right next door to Comerica Park in downtown Detroit. Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
The Ford Field hosted the Super Bowl. That was the Pittsburgh and Seattle Super Bowl. That was Super Bowl 41. That was about 15, 16 years ago. So, yeah, they could host one. The Bears, yeah. What's up?
That was when the first year it opened. Yeah, I think that was the first couple years it opened.
Right, it was like 3 years after it opened because that stadium opened in 2002.
Yeah.
And then 3 years later, they got the Super Bowl. So, yeah, for Chicago, that would be great. But I know Mayor Lightfoot, who I had my issues with on other issues, but this is a sports podcast. We're going to keep it on sports. I know she fired back an hour later and saying that the Bears should stay here and this and that and the third. Yes, we all know that this is about money at the end of the day. The city of Chicago do not want to lose that money, okay? But if you're the Bears, you want to own your own stuff, you probably have no other choice but to leave. Yeah, and to remind our listeners and viewers, the lease is up after 2033, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's true. But there's no.
But I'm sure if they want to get out at least soon, I'm sure they'll have to work some deals out if they want to get out. But right now, it's after 2033 they can get out. The lease is up with the city of Chicago.
Yeah, that's not going to stop them. I mean, look, I'm sure it was like
right. That's what I'm saying. They can get out as soon as they'll do it.
If they could maybe cut a check or something, the NFL will probably have to get involved. And look, I think this whole thing, like, is there land in other parts of the city, like Chicago proper, that you can put a new football stadium? There isn't really that much blank land. So look, there's no guarantee that they're actually even gonna that they may that they're gonna get that land up in Arlington. I mean, I think there's like a couple like music venues, some other things. So there's no guarantee, but you gotta think Tom Hayes, who's the mayor of Arlington Heights, even kind of like did a little wink nudge us, like, what, the Bears might buy this, race course. I mean, the racetrack. I mean, the land is there. It's probably gonna be a pain because you're going up north, so it's probably gonna be even harder to get there. And also, too, especially if you're coming from the city, and if you get folks who actually live in the city, people who cover the team who live in the city, that's a whole nother issue. So, look, there's still a lot of things to be sorted out. And look, it's gonna be very interesting to see where this goes, because I think that we have not heard the last of it. And yes, their lease for the Soldier Field is up till 2033, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, that's that they can always like cut a check or something. Well, the NFL have to get involved. I think that's another issue. Like, do they have to kind of like step in? Roger Goodell got to step in and say, okay, what can be done here? Because if we want to keep it in your third largest market, keep it in that third largest market, is there land anywhere, and especially in downtown? We'll ask Matt Zahn from CBS 2 Chicago about this, in a little bit, but it's kind of fascinating that we talked about this for like the last couple of months, Sid, when this sort of started like being lurking around, but now it looks like it could be a reality. Fans are starting to get a little bit nervous.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown as we talk about the Bears' possible move to Arlington Heights, Illinois, and their place bid for the purchasing of the Arlington International Racecourse property. Lakeena, as you mentioned before about the players there will work in their favor because they don't have to stay downtown like they have to right now coming in from the suburbs. They have to I forgot which hotel they stay at, but they stay at a hotel in downtown Chicago the day before a game at Soldier Field. And so that part would be cut out. But as far as the fans are concerned, we talked about this the first time, Lakeena. Us living on the south side of Chicago in the southern suburbs for yours truly, uh, especially during a bad weather day. Like the team was toward the end of last year, mediocre, barely sneaking into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to spend close to an hour and a half with a traffic jam along with bad weather to go see a mediocre team? No. And let's be honest here, and we said this the first time the story was brought up too. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm pretty damn sure that I'm correct on this. The majority of your season ticket fan base comes from up north in the western suburbs. And so it's going to be easy for them to get to the stadium. If you live in the city, it's going to cut down just a little bit of time from where we live. But still, it's going to take some time to get up there. We know Chicago traffic, especially during the summertime when it's construction season, is bad anyway. Is almost as bad as Los Angeles. We're not quite there yet, thank goodness, but we're almost getting there. You see what it is with no construction. Imagine if a bad weather day happened, whether it's rain, sleet, or snow, and you come from where we are to go up there. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm. Especially if the team is not very good or is mediocre.
Exactly.
Like you said, are you really going to drag yourself and go the 2 hours, 2.5 hours, go up north to Arlington Heights where you're kind of like right in the middle of that, between Evanston. It's sort of like it's just in the city of Chicago. It's kind of like right, like it's as you go a little bit further north. So it's definitely going to be a trip for a lot of people, and like it could be a deterrent for some folks. This might discourage people from even going trying to go to see a Bears game. I mean, yes, Soldier Field for all its quirks and everything else, but at least you're in the city. Yes, the traffic is terrible, and the parking is horrific, but you're in the city. So if you go up north, you go 2.5 hours north. Are you really going to want to try to drag yourself into doing the 2.5 hour trek, especially since, yes, the metro, there is a metro stop that does will take you to Arlington Racecourse, but do you really think, you never know, there might be delays there. So you just don't know. And I think that this is just, I don't know, I think we may not have heard the last of this, but I just feel like we'll ask Matt about this later, but I just think that this could be like, maybe a wake-up call for the Park District to say, whatever you guys need to do. And I think it's unfortunate that the ownership for the Bears, I mean, this could have been done like years ago. They didn't have to go through all this red tape, but, it is what it is.
I'll give you a quick story. I believe I told the story the first time. I know we have some new listeners and new viewers, those are watching on YouTube. The game that I went to many moons ago, it turned out to be Matt Forte's last game as a Bear, and it was Calvin Johnson's last game as a Lion. That was back in 2015. My buddy who I grew up with in my old neighborhood, he works for Chicago's Finest. He knew somebody that lived on one of the properties in downtown Chicago, so he was lucky to get parking there, and he didn't have to pay for it. Maybe he just didn't tell me about, but still, we were able to park fine. You do have to walk to Soldier Field, okay?
It's about 5 or 6 blocks, right?
Yeah, so there's no CTA bus stop there. There's no Pace bus stop there. There's another. You could grab the metro from where we are, the Rock Island line to LaSalle Street Station, but you still had to do some walking. Not as much, but you still had to do some walking. But even though this is in a nice scenery area around McCorvey Place, I know Wintrust is a few blocks down from there, but you had to do some walking. But we were lucky that we didn't have to pay for parking. And like you said, Lakeena, just walking through that parking lot that day, I was like, I don't know how people do it. And I know the Bears, we have the best fans in the league as far as tailgating is concerned, but you have to get there early just to get a good spot, just to park, let alone tailgate. So like you mentioned, traffic is a mess. I think when it all comes down to it, if the Bears should get that bid, I think the only choice they have is to get up out of there. Now, if the city can get their heads out of their you-know-whats and make a better deal with the Bears, so be it. But right now, if you're the McCaskies, if you had a gun to your head, the only choice you have is to leave up and get up out of there because you want to own your own stuff, correct?
Oh, yeah. And plus, like you said, especially this is a missed opportunity for Chicago to get a Super Bowl, to get a Final Four. I mean, I want or the Big Ten, championship or the Big Ten tournament for men's and women's. I mean, you want to have that stuff here. So you're sick of Indianapolis getting all the glory and whatnot. So it's definitely it should be something that, hopefully this will force everyone, like all sides, to kind of get to the table and sort of agree on something. Because look, you don't want to be, I'm sure Mayor Lightfoot, for all her faults, I'm sure she doesn't want to be known as the mayor that, that had the Bears leave the city of Chicago. I don't think she doesn't want that on her resume. So I think that if nothing else, if she doesn't accomplish anything, they're going to have to try to figure something out.
Yeah, and real quick before we move on, looking out, I thought about this morning. Remember back at 2010 when the whole city of Chicago got upset that we lost on the bid for the Olympics, we didn't qualify to get to the next round. Remember that?
Oh, yes.
This was 11 years ago.
Yep.
Everybody talk about the reason. Oh, the violence, the violence, the violence. Not to make fun of it, but I'm sure that was a small part of it. But let's be real. I think it had something to do with Soldier Field as well. I know before you yell at me and say, well, so they renovated several years before that bid. I guarantee you, if that place was being renovated, it had a dome over it, or if they moved to Arlington Heights or somewhere else that had a retractable roof, we would have been in a better position to get the Olympics. That's the angle that people are not talking about. Everybody wants to bring up violence, violence, violence. Yes, it's sad. Yes, violence is everywhere, including our city. But the angle that people are not talking about is Soldier Field. You could have used that for a track and field or soccer or other events if you had the Olympics here. But I believe that's the underground issue that nobody's talking about. If Soldier Field was built differently before they bid in 11 years ago, we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Yeah, we lost those Olympics to Rio, and look, Rio is not exactly, the debt of iniquity. So I think, yes, as beautiful as it is, but they have their issues too with violence. So for anybody that says that, oh, it's because of violence, really? Yeah, we won't, like I said, we won't get into it, but deep into it. But yeah, I think that's just
I just wanted to point that out.
That's just an easy excuse for people. That's an easy flesh for folks to use. So I just thought it was stupid then, and it's even stupider now.
Like you said, this story is far from over. It's just we're just getting started with it. The legs are growing like a centipede, and this is going to get interesting as the weeks and days and perhaps years go by. And so this is not the last, as you mentioned, that we hear of this. And so let's move forward to baseball. Lakeena, let's start out with the Southsiders. Despite the 10-2 loss to the Houston Astros on Thursday night, the Sox are in the middle of the 4-game series with the Houston Astros. Of course, tonight's game, if you guys listen to us on our podcast version, tonight is Saturday. Today is Saturday. Tonight they'll be on Fox as part of Baseball Night in America. That game will take place at 6:15 p.m. But, Lakeena, let's go back to earlier this week. The Tampa Bay Rays came to town. The Sox took 2 out of 3. Tampa Bay won the first game. Tyler Glasnow, who was the starting pitcher for the Rays, we'll get into what happened to him in just a moment further. But he left the game in the 4th inning with a right elbow injury. Looks like he may need season-ending surgery. The Sox won the last 2 games to take the series, including an extra innings win on Wednesday after blowing the 7-2 lead. The bullpen coughed it up again. Aaron Bummer. I'm losing patience with this guy. But thank goodness Yasmani Grandal came through with the game-winning hit in the bottom of the 10th inning to secure that win for the Sox. They have one of the best records in baseball. Despite what happened on Thursday in the first game of that series on the road against Houston, I still like what this team is doing. But, Lakeena, how long can they keep riding Lady Luck? Now, I'm not going to say here that this team is garbage, they're overrated. I'm not doing that. I'm being serious. I'm not just speaking as a quote-unquote meatball fan. I'm looking at this from the outside in. They're a very good team. As I said before, let's give GM Rick Hahn credit for building depth on his roster. But how long can you keep riding this?
You know what? I think, look, I thought about you when Aaron Bummer blew that save. I was like, I know Sid's going to have a field day with this when on Friday when we record this, because I think he gave up that 7-2 lead. Help kind of like led the sort of like the Rays rally that, got in the tie. But thankfully Grandal was able to pull it out for the Sox late. I mean, look, I think, look, if nothing else, this is a nice confidence booster. People were wondering that, can the Sox beat the top teams in the AL? I mean, but the fact that you win 2 out of 3 against a really good Rays team, and look, I think that can only help your confidence. We'll see how you do against Houston. Look, Houston is probably an even better team or even tougher team than the Rays. So we'll see what they do with that. And then look, I think that if you're Rick Hahn, you're kind of like you're in a good place if you're the White Sox right now. Unfortunately, the Indians have been playing pretty good lately too. So you're the kind of sort of still nipping at your heels. They've won 4 in a row as this recording. So they're still kind of like near. That's really the only team in the AL Central you have to worry about at this point. But yeah, I mean, I think if looking back on that Rays series, the wins, the Tuesday one, which they lost a tough one there, but look, they were able to Tim Anderson again has some good hits late. I mean, look, I think that's the Monday matchup, I should say. But yeah, I mean, when they lost, but look, Keiko was great, in that 3 where they shut out the Rays. He had 7 solid, strong innings. I mean, look, I think that this is what you want to do against sort of like those top tier teams in the AL. If you want to prove that you can be right there in that category with the Rays and the Astros, I think you need to win these series.
Yes, as we said before, the schedule only gets tougher for the White Sox. Of course, you're in the middle of the series against Houston right now on the road, and then you turn around next weekend to play the Seattle Mariners. So, of course, you have Minnesota in there next week as well as you start your home portion of the schedule to end the month of June going into the month of July. So it's important for the Sox to pile up the wins, especially against your division. Of course, you had to get finished with the Astros first this weekend, but it's important to pile up the wins because the schedules only get tougher, especially after the All-Star break. And so for the Sox right now, hopefully you don't suffer any more injuries. Speaking of injuries, Adam Eaton injured his hamstring, quote unquote, so he's going to be on a 10-day DL. I know Billy Hamilton, he's due to come off the IL soon. Michael Kopech has had a minor setback. He was supposed to be due back this week. He's had a setback, hopefully. With his hamstring, it's not anything more serious than it is right now because, especially after what happened on Wednesday, we all know that the Sox need him for sure. Heaven forbid to have a devastating injury to their starting rotation. It's going to be tough, but also another news as far as the Sox injury front is concerned, Eloy Jimenez, who injured his shoulder during the last week of spring training, he's been cleared to participate in baseball activities. After a month, if he doesn't have any setbacks, he'll go down to Arizona to rehab, I'm assuming for a couple of weeks. So he could be back as early as the first week in August. That's after the July 31st trade deadline. So good news could be arriving for the men on the south side.
Yeah, but also on the flip side, too, Madrigal decided to have surgery, so he's done for the year. So there's sort of like a kind of a trade-off there. So you hope that the White Sox, they can't afford to have any more injuries, especially in their starting pitching staff. If God forbid, if Lance Lynn gets hurt, or if Giolito gets hurt, or if Keiko gets hurt, I mean, and then you're really going to have problems with the White Sox. So they've been very fortunate that even though despite the injuries, they got one of the best records in the majors. So kudos to them, the fact that they've been able to do this. But you just imagine how much better of a record they would have if mostly everybody was healthy. So, but the fact that they've been able to kind of stay afloat, I think it's a good thing.
It is a good thing. So we'll see what happens with the White Sox as they continue their series on the road against Houston this weekend. Let's go over to the north side, Lakeena. The Cubs, seems like the Cubs couldn't catch a break in the Big Apple this week, losing 3 out of 4 to the Mets. They avoided a sweep on Thursday, defeating the Mets by the score of 2-0. Cal Hendricks clearly pitching his best game of the season, shutting out the Mets. Marcus Stroman did a heck of a job on the flip side for New York, but the Mets, as usual, cannot muster up any offense. Does that sound familiar? The team that they beat 3 other times this week? Yes, it does. But Cal Hendricks pitched 6 innings of shutout ball, only gave up 2 hits, walked 2 batters, but struck out 7. Lakeena, this is just perfect timing for Cal Hendricks. We talked about him in our last episode with his start last Saturday in front of a national audience against St. Louis. He didn't pitch his best, but you can see that he was starting to build up his confidence. He was backed up by a great offensive outburst, and so the Cubs got the win there in his start. There was not much offense on Thursday, but it was very much needed. It was enough to defeat the Mets and to avoid being swept.
Yeah, and I think that they needed that. They needed to salvage that series because there were a couple of games in that Mets series that they slipped away. The second game of that 4-gamer, I think they kind of let that slip away. they were tied at 2, just couldn't have much at the offense. You can kind of say to some extent the Wednesday one with DeGrom, he had to pull out early with the injury. Thankfully, it's not too serious for him, but it was definitely a big ask for them. But I think, look, the good news for the Cubs is that the other teams behind them, had their issues too this week. The Brewers got swept, got swept by the Reds of all people. They've been playing better. I know, right? It's just crazy. And the Cardinals have had their issues too. So the good thing for the Cubs that everyone else has lost, so they've been kind of like, oh, okay, so cool. So they're up a game right now. They got Miami. They gave them issues. They knocked them out of the playoffs last year. I think they should be some type of revenge. Look, the Marlins got a pretty good young team, but there's no reason why the Cubs shouldn't win. At least win the series. Maybe might be a big stretch for them to sweep, but you're better than the Marlins. They should be able to win that. At the very least, win 2 out of 3 in that series. And look, I think if we get a good good start from Hendricks, look, I think that you can definitely have the season's opportunity because you have a tough schedule. You have Cleveland, on Monday. Then you got 4 at the Dodgers. Then you got 4 at Milwaukee. So the next week's games are going to go into the next weekend will be very, very tough for the Cubs. But first things first, you got Davis, Arrieta, Alec Mills. You should be able to win 2 out of 3 in that Marlins series. And look, I think Hendricks, we're starting to see kind of Hendricks sort of get into that groove that we're used to seeing him. So that's always a good thing. And look, I think if you're the Cubs, I think you're in a really good spot right now.
Also, too, for the Cubs, hopefully a couple of your starting pitchers may have seen the light as well. We talked about Zach Davies' performance on last Sunday night against the Cardinals from a national audience. He pitched 7 innings, a shutout ball as well. And so hopefully he's turned the corner. Jake Arrieta, as we told you guys, you don't expect 2016 or 2015 Jake Arrieta. What he gives you now is what he has. Hopefully you could get a little bit more lady luck, as we say, out of him. I know he's been struggling with recently. I know his last start he looked okay, but the Cubs didn't win it. But hopefully you can get some more consistent starting pitching. Your bullpen has been lights out. Hopefully the offense can use some rejuvenation again. It got stalled in New York. And like you said, the Marlins are coming to town. You better not overlook them. But the offense could use a rejuvenation again. Jock Peterson's coming through. You talk about Jason Hayward, of course. Chris Bryant is starting to have a bounce back year. Anthony Rizzo is doing his thing at the plate. So hopefully the Cubs can use the Marlins as batting practice this weekend at Wrigley Field to get their offense back on track. And like you said, it'll be ideally for them to sweep, but realistically, I expect them to take 2 out of 3 from the fish.
I definitely think they should be able to do just that. And I think, like I said before, the other teams in that division have not, like I said, have not been very good. Like the Brewers got swept by the Reds, and I think that's sort of like that's helped them. Yes, you had your problems, but so did everyone else in your division. So, it's the Reds have won 7 of their last 10, so they may have to worry about them. You might not. I doubt it, but. The Cardinals lost 2 out of 3 in their series. So, look, I think the only good thing about the good news is if you're one of this, look at this as a Cubs fan, is that if everyone else in your division, with the exception of Cincy, have not been playing very well. So you're like, oh, okay, we'll just be kind of like the team that kind of gets out of that at this point.
Yeah, and like we said before with the White Sox, you the Cubs take care of business against lesser opponents, especially the teams with the division. Like you mentioned, they have a tough week ahead with the Indians coming here for 2 on the north side, and of course you had to go back on the road for 4 next weekend at the Dodgers. So you have a tough test coming up to end the month of June, heading to the month of July, and so. If you're the Cubs, you just got to pile up the wins. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Just take care of your business. You should be okay.
Absolutely. You listen to Second City Sports Zoom style along with Cindy Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee. Okay, Sid, what impressed you so far this week in MLB?
I knew you was going to ask that. I don't know if you listened to this, but I was listening to an LA sports radio station, the home of the Dodgers. You folks can Google it up yourself. Trevor Bauer was talking to the press. I don't know if you heard this. But He did this. Some people will call it trick. This was, I believe, before Tuesday night's game against Philadelphia, which they couldn't complete the sweep. They won 2 out of 3. Talking about the Dodgers over the Phillies. Trevor Bauer was talking about how Major League Baseball is banning these foreign substances for these pitchers to use. There was talk about these pitchers were some of the pitchers around baseball were warned about it, that this would be coming ahead of time. And Trevor Bauer just used sweat and some other substance that I'm assuming that was not banned. And he showed it to all these reporters. And he said, will I get caught by doing this now? I'm just paraphrasing here. And if you guys know about Trevor Bauer, he's been outspoken. He's been doing this his whole career.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, he does have a point, but are you trying to be slick to get away with something that you shouldn't be doing? Or are you just being Trevor Bauer and just flaunting your attitude and saying, come get me, Major League Baseball. You can't do what to me.
He's basically daring them, right? To especially since they are.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, to sound like, hey, you know what? Hey, I use this stuff over here. You guys are cracking down on it. Hey, hello. Come on. It was crazy how he did it. He's a little bit of out there, personality wise anyway. But yeah, I mean that whole thing is just, look, it won't affect either one of the teams here in Chicago because most of those pitchers don't use those type of foreign substances. But it will affect guys like on the Dodgers, like Garrett Cole from the Yankees. I think that those are probably going to be the pitchers that are going to be affected by this and this new rule. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of weird that they're waiting until like about halfway through the season to crack down on these type of things. It's just, I just find it very amusing.
Yeah, after this, it'll be something else. So as we talked about this before, Lakeena, about a week or so ago, we know cheating has been part of baseball forever. Excuse me, people have used other substances to get an advantage. We know hitters have used other substances, i.e. Mr. Needle, as I call it, steroids, especially during the late 90s and the early 2000s when baseball needed the juice, excuse the expression, as far as bringing fans back into the game, i.e. that 98 home run chase, but we'll leave that alone. But we know cheating has been part of the game. If it's not one thing, it's another. I think it's just this will eventually blow over. I don't know why people are getting so upset about. Maybe I'm missing something. Help me out. But I don't know why people are getting so upset about. This ain't nothing new, folks. It's been passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah, well, I think Cole kind of said himself, look, I was taught in Little League to do this. So I think for people to say that suddenly it's becoming a big issue, I think it's just silly because the home run numbers are not very good right now.
I know the batting average is not good either. I get it, but
a lot of
you think this is just going to stop it? No.
Yeah, I think they're looking for something. Even though the Rays have actually been pretty good for baseball on television, I think that maybe they think that this will get it even higher if we get people to sort of play with the balls and sort of let it, so we can have more hits or have more home runs. Because I guess those numbers are down, and then there are a lot more strikeouts. So I guess this is probably why kind of the answer to kind of prevent a lot of that, but I don't know.
I just find it baffling to me that some folks, not everybody, but some folks that claim they've been covering baseball for a long time now. I found this issue is a new issue. You are outraged, really.
Well, you know how
I don't get it.
Well, some people need something to be outraged about, I guess, but it's crazy that this is becoming a big issue, even though pitchers have been doing this for over 100 years. So I don't know why this is now becoming a big issue, but I guess they need something to kind of get those home run numbers up. That's the only thing I can think of that why they would even want to do this. But,
all right, before.
But just want to say, unfortunately, the bad part about it, the Diamondbacks, they lost their 23rd straight road game. But it's the longest road losing streak in the modern era. Go all the way back to 1963. The Mets, they lost 22 in a row. Now they've lost. The Diamondbacks have now lost 23. They last won a road game, I should say, back in April 25th. That was enough before the NBA's play-in tournament. So you can. The Diamondbacks have gotten rid of a lot of their hitting people, their hitting coaches, their hitting staff. I guess they replaced everybody. I don't know. Clearly, that hasn't made a difference. So.
Speaking of those Diamondbacks, as we preview this weekend series from across baseball, the Diamondbacks will host the LA Dodgers this weekend. Of course, the LA Dodgers And guess who was pitching in that first game? And we'll have a report on this on our next episode for Tuesday. Trevor Bauer will open up as the Dodgers starting pitcher in that series. So we'll see what happens there. Other series to take a look at: Cleveland's at Pittsburgh to take on the Pirates. For you Sox fans that are interested, the New York Mets will travel to our nation's capital to face the Nationals. The Oakland A's will take on the New York Yankees. I'll be watching that one closely. The Toronto Blue Jays will go to Baltimore to take on the Orioles. The Cardinals and the Braves will get together in the NL battle down there in Atlanta. And Atlanta really needs to turn around. No, they won the first game of the series on Thursday after being embarrassed by Boston early in the week. Of course, you have the Miami Marlins and the Cubs here in Chicago. Minnesota at the Texas Rangers at Globe Life Field. The Boston Red Sox will go to Kansas City to take on the Royals. Of course, you have the White Sox and the Astros. Milwaukee Brewers will take on the Colorado Rockies. The Detroit Tigers, A.J. Hinch cheating ass, will take on Joe Mann's Anaheim Angels. The Phillies will battle the Giants. We have some news on that in just a moment. The Reds and the Padres, they'll be the third game on Fox Saturday Baseball tonight. Only a small portion of the country will get to look at that. And then you have Tampa Bay at Seattle. Lakeena, let's go to Philadelphia and the Giants. Quick news there. The Peacock Network will have exclusive streaming for all three games of that series. Unless you have the MLB TV package or bootleg cable, you will not be able to watch those games on television. That's so good for Terrence Tomlin would say from It's the Bigs here in Chicago. But unless you have the MLB TV package or stream Peacock TV, you won't be able to watch that series this weekend via your television.
Yeah, and
I don't know if you read that.
Yeah, I saw that I saw that somewhere, and I think, is this going to be a trend where you're going to have some of these series are going to be exclusively on the Peacock Network? Now, will it be through their free app or will it be part of their premium service? Because a premium service, I think, is like $5, I think, $3 or $4. So, are people going to? Is this going to be sort of the wave of the future? I hope not, because like I said, people want options. And look, I think that
people are cutting the cord already as far as the traditional cable service.
Yeah, but you got a lot of purists, so I don't think that this might be one of those days where, okay, maybe every few weeks, you have one series, you pick a series, and let's just put that on the Peacock app. I mean, I think this is actually a big series for both teams. They're both near the top. I know Phillies in the second in the National League East. San Fran is leading the NL West right now, and look, I think if you really want to have, that type of exposure, I think put it in this series exclusively on the Peacock Network is probably, or your Peacock app, I should say, probably not a good way to do it. But again, that's just me.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens if this becomes a trend for the weeks and years to come as we find new ways to stream our live sports programming. You're listening to Second City Sports Weekend Edition along with Lakeena McGee. I'm Sydney Brown. Lakeena, let's close out this first segment of talking about the NBA playoffs since we have a few minutes left. Let's go to the Eastern Conference. We'll have a Game 7 between the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 6 on Thursday night. The Milwaukee Bucks stayed off elimination by defeating the Brooklyn Nets by 15 points, 104-89. Chris Middleton stepped up for Milwaukee, had a game-high 38 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. Kevin Durant led Brooklyn with 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists. Lakeena, of course, the symbol Cari won't be back for the rest of this series. I don't know if he's going to be back for the rest of the playoffs should Brooklyn advance. Milwaukee finally got a big performance out of Mr. Middleton. Giannis Antetokounmpo, a.k.a. the Greek Freak, did his thing. Can they do that one more time on the road this weekend at Brooklyn? I have a big question mark about that. And you know why.
Yeah, I do know why, and I'm having that. Look, I have that same question too. I mean, do I really expecting Chris Middleton to have a 38-point performance on Game 7? I doubt that. I think the Nets are. I really believe the Nets are going to pull this out. I think they don't want to go out like that, and it's going to be at home. So yeah, I think that'll help. That should help them a little bit. But again, they need to. If they can just jump on the Bucks early, I think they should be able to kind of step the foot on the gas and go for the knockout punch right away. Because if they let the Bucks hang on and hang around, you're going to give them more and more confidence, and you don't want that if you're the Nets. So if you want to try and go for the knockout punch early, that's really the best way to do it.
They kind of did that in terms of Brooklyn. They kind of did that on Tuesday in Game 5. Of course, Kevin Durant had a triple-double with 49 points, 17 rebounds, and 10 assists. They're going to need that effort from him again. But as we said before, Lakeena, with Cari being out, it's going to have to be a collective effort. Blake Griffin, Bruce Brown, Nicholas Claxton, everybody is going to have to chip in. If you ride on Kevin Durant's back, we don't know how long he's going to last. So it's going to be another total team effort again. They kind of did that in the first half on Thursday, but the second half, they just ran out of gas. Hopefully, the home court advantage will help them this time.
Yeah, hopefully this will help them rejuvenate them because I think hopefully a little home cooking helps. But if they could be sort of the team that we saw in Game 5 where it was a collective effort, and look, you can tell that KD just didn't have the energy in Game 6. Yeah, I was not surprised that they were able to kind of shoot all over, that Milton was able to shoot all over them the way he did. But look, they need to, like you said, they need to get their role players need to step up and help them out, like you said. So they definitely need to kind of like show up. So hopefully they can do that.
Okay. The other Eastern Conference Final Series, of course, as of this recording, Game 6 has already been played between the Atlanta Hawks and the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll give you our Cisco and Eber review on our episode for Tuesday. But let's talk about Game 5. Lakeena, of course, Atlanta, as of this recording, leads that series, best of 7 series, 3-2. This past Wednesday, the Hawks trailed by as many as 26 points. They rallied to beat Philadelphia on their home court, 109-106. Trae Young had 39 points. Joel Embiid had 37 points, 13 rebounds. Lakeena, who deserves the most blame pie for this one? The Philadelphia players first, then Doc Rivers second, Ben Simmons. I'm done with you. If I'm a Philadelphia fan, I'm done with you.
Someone actually said, someone actually said that maybe the Bulls should try to get Ben Simmons.
No!
I just
Stop it! Come on, Rob Parker of FS1. Stop it!
Yeah, it just sounded really stupid. But again, we won't go there. Hope that'll never happen. But yeah, I think where was the guys that kind of help him out? 8 points. 8 points? Really? Excuse me. Really, Ben Simmons? Only 8 points? Really, dude? Tobias Harris.
You can't shoot a damn free throw. You gotta be kidding
right?
me.
God, really? That was just so stupid. 4 for 14 for the free throws. No wonder guys, were able to foul him. Wanted to foul him because he's not gonna hit your free throws. But Tobias Harris, though, I mean, you stepped up before in the playoffs. You scored 20, 25 points in the playoffs before. Only 4 points in that game. Come on. I mean, look, there needs to be like some accountability. I know it's easy for people to blame Doc Rivers, but I don't think he's all to blame. The guys on the court need to step up. Ben Simmons, you hit your free throws. Tobias Harris, you just shoot your shots. Take some more shots, take some more chances. So they need to look. If you look, Atlanta's got all the confidence going into Game 6 right now. They think they can win the series. I don't think they will, but if you want to look, let's get. Let's get some going here. Trust the process. You're one of your Sixers fans to trust the process, but it's not working for you. So you better get it together. Seth Curry, I should say, you need to get it together too. So, of course, Philly's going to be on the golf course if they don't, step up.
And you only had 13 points from your bench. Talking about Philadelphia, that's very inexcusable. Well, like I said, we'll have our review of this series coming up on our next episode on Tuesday. We may be talking about Philadelphia going on a golf course, but like I said, we shall see if Game 6. Like I said, we already took place as we record this. Game 6 will already been played by the time this episode is released. So we'll see what happens. Look, I know we're gonna have a whole lot more to talk about. We'll be talking about a Game 7, or will we talk about an early vacation for the Sixers? Or we shall see. We may talk about another early vacation for another team, and that's the Utah Jazz. Of course, this past Wednesday, the LA Clippers got the best of the Utah Jazz without Kawhi Leonard. Paul George stepped up with 37 big points, grabbed 16 rebounds. Bojan Bogdanovic for Utah scored 32 points. Lakeena, the Clippers hung tough on the road, and it was capped off by that dunk by Terrence Mann, the second-year man, on Rudy Gobert with less than 2 minutes left to go. If the Clippers weren't inspired by then, I don't know what was. Of course, the first 2 games of this series, the Clippers failed to execute down the stretch. Game 5 was a total different story.
Yeah, and you gotta look. I think we've been waiting for a playoff Paul George. We finally got him. He's the first player,
Hmm.
in Clippers history to score 35 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists. I mean, you could tell they were inspired by Kyrie. I know, we know how Kyrie is. Maybe he might give him a pep talk before the game, and they're in the driver's. Well, look, I mean, look, they're in the driver's seat now. I think because with Donovan Mitchell still banged up with that ankle injury,
Hmm.
he's questionable. So that this is sort of the Clippers' chance to kind of go for the knockout punch to see if hopefully, Kawhi could be back, by the series with the Suns, who are having their own issues. But we probably will try to go get to that in a little bit. But I was kind of surprised that they were able to pull this performance off because like everybody was already sort of like writing their playoff obituary. Oh look,
Hmm.
they're done. Kyrie's out for who knows how long, and they're finished. But look,
Kawhi.
yeah, I mean, look, Kawhi. I mean, hey, they step. Look, I mean, Reggie Jackson stepped up. I mean,
Yeah.
that's probably definitely a career playoff high for him. Marcus Morris Sr. I mean, look, this is like this guy we've
Yes.
seen before. With 25 points, has some big shots. Also has some key boards there. Excuse me. Terrence Mann as well. So sort of nice balanced scoring for the Clippers. And look, it's PG's team now, for at least for right now. So I think it's good that he's finally playing like it.
Yeah, on the flip side for the Utah Jazz, of course, I mentioned Bogdanovich had 32 points at team high. Donovan Mitchell, he scored 21, but he only had 4 of 14 shots from three-point land and 6 of 19 overall. They had Jordan Clarkson scoring 15 points off the bench, but after that, they only had 2 points off their bench. That's not going to get it done. As I mentioned before with the other series, Game 6 would already been played. So hopefully, if you're a Clippers fan, they would have wrapped it up. But we'll maybe talk about a game 7 recap for our next episode coming up on Tuesday. So we shall see. But as far as this Kawhi injury, if it's an ACL, that's going to be a problem. But we'll see what happens. It's not official yet, but I know the Clippers fear that it's an ACL injury. Of course, Kawhi Leonard suffered that in Game 4 the other day. It's not looking good for the Clippers, but you just got to control what you control. If you're the Clippers, just finish off the Utah Jazz, and we'll see if they can face the Phoenix Suns in the Western Conference Final.
Yeah, like I said before, Donovan Mitchell is questionable, so he's not 100% either. So if the Clippers can kind of take advantage of that, I think they're good. They're golden. Hopefully, they can get some rest, and we'll see what happens if we get to if the Clippers are able to finish off the Jazz.
All right, real quickly, Keenan, before we close out this first segment, Chris Paul, he's in COVID-19 protocol. If you believe the reports out there, has been surfacing out there that has been saying that he did take the vaccine for the COVID-19. Now, we said on this show before, even if you get the vaccine, it does not protect you for it. It's not a cure. You can still get it, but it won't be as severe. We don't know how long it's going to be out, but it seems to me not just for the Phoenix Suns, but for the rest of the teams remaining in the playoffs, whoever's the healthiest is going to win this title this year.
I love the fact that folks are already saying that there should be an asterisk of whoever wins the title because of all the
I was going to
injuries
bring that up.
of all and everything else that's been happening. But I mean, like it's just a tough break for CP3. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess the word is that he was around someone that had COVID, and I guess he had a positive test. He has to go into the protocols, but hopefully he'll probably miss game 1 at most. Because I guess he did take the vaccine, and people are going to the whole thing about you should have taken the okay. We won't go there, but hopefully he won't miss. He might miss game 1, and that's it. But this is definitely a tough break for him in the sense. But the good news is that they're rested now, so in a way, this kind of like is a good thing.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. As we talked about before, the Phoenix Suns, they've been the most popular team and the most surprising team in this playoffs. To give head coach Monty Williams his credit and other role players as well. At least we know for game 1 they're going to have to step in and step up. It's going to be a team effort, whoever they face, whether it's Utah or the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, at least for game 1. Perhaps maybe even the first 2 games of the series you may be without Chris Paul. So it's going to be a team effort. So it's going to be a challenge for those guys. But let's see what head coach Monty Williams does. He's done a terrific job, and they're going to have to he's going to have to rally the troops and to go forward in this journey for the NBA's Western Conference Finals. Segment number 1 is in the books. Segment number 2 will be on the flip side. Matt Zahn, sports anchor of CBS2 Chicago, will join us. We'll discuss the Bears. We'll discuss all the other teams from Chicago and from Chicago that he covers, the Bulls, Blackhawks, White Sox, Cubs, and everything else in between, and we'll have a whole lot more fun. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown. We'll see and hear you on the other side. Welcome back to the second half of Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sidney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
And pardon the bad voice of mine. You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
Yeah, Lakeena is persevering through this, folks. She does not sound like Marge Simpson's sister, so save the jokes, save the jokes. You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, first on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. Videos drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, videos drop every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube at War Media. You can go to War on Anchor to catch the audio version of this podcast, which drops, every Tuesday and Saturday. Once again, the audio versions drop every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor. We are available on podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in that search engine box, War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. Go to our website, weareregalradio.com for more information. And you can follow us on all social media platforms, including right here on YouTube. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and here on YouTube. And thank you in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, subscribe. And we are unapologetically fun. Programming note, Matt Zahn of CBS2 Chicago was supposed to join us here today, where we're scheduled to have him on again down the road. Lakeena, let's start off this second half of the weekend edition of Second City Sports by talking about potential coaching changes in the NBA. Of course, Rick Carlisle notified the Dallas Mavericks organization that he will not return. Of course, you have Stan Van Gundy that he and the New Orleans Pelicans, quote unquote, parted ways. We already know that there's a coaching change that's going to happen in Indianapolis. The Pacers will be looking for a new head coach there. The Portland Trail Blazers said goodbye to Terry Stotts a couple of weeks ago. So there's about 4 or 5 teams that I named already, Lakeena. If I missed any, please let me know. But we all know that covering and talking about professional sports, there's going to be head coaching changes every year. The NBA is no different. And Rick Carlisle, you can add his name to the list. We talked about this before we started recording, that Rick Carlisle, he's been with the Mavericks 14 years. He gave that franchise his only championship back in 2011. He's one of the best best head coaches in the league. I think he's still president of the National Basketball Head Coaches Association. I believe he's still the president of that. But for a team that's vying for his services, if he wants to continue coaching, he shouldn't be unemployed for long.
Yeah, if you read his statement, again, pardon for the voice, folks, but if you read his statement, it kind of sounds like he's already looking for his next chapter, or he probably may have the next chapter already lined up. So I'm wondering, like, maybe Boston, he won a championship there, maybe Portland, maybe Washington. Remember too, Scotty Brooks, they failed to come to an agreement. So now they're looking for a new head coach. Also Orlando, don't forget about them, Sid. So yeah, so there's still some coaching.
It is Orlando.
Yeah, that is true. And also too, Stan Van, I'm not really surprised about the Stan Van situation, because it doesn't seem like it was a good fit from the get-go. And if you read the reports, Zion and his family are not very happy with the direction the franchise seemed to be going. So that's another issue. So I think Boston's probably the most sought after job in the league, I think. But yeah, it's gonna be, but I don't think Mr. Carlisle is gonna be out of a job very long. Like I said before, I mean, he could go to Portland, he could go to Boston. Like I said, he won a title there as a player. So it's gonna be very interesting to see where he goes.
Let me bring up this team, Lakeena. You know where I'm going with this. Should the Milwaukee Bucks lose this series to the Brooklyn Nets on Sunday, and the Milwaukee's management can do the right thing and give Mike Budenholzer his walking papers, I see Rick Carlisle as the perfect fit up there.
Yeah,
It
I
should
can
be a
see
no-brainer.
yeah, I could
It
definitely
should
see
be a
that
no-brainer.
working. I can definitely see that working, coaching Giannis and them. I think that definitely is a
Mm-hmm.
good fit there. So I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of coaching spots. I mean, the stuff with Dallas, I mean, it's kind of interesting because there was some stuff that came out about Dallas. Mark Cuban said it's not true, but then you find out what happened with
Mm-hmm.
Carlisle. So it's just crazy that whole thing has transpired in the last week or two in Dallas. But yeah, definitely, like it's going to be very interesting. Portland would be a good spot for him too. So, Coach and Dame, maybe they'll get Dame to stay. Maybe to quiet some of the
Mm-hmm.
rumors that he might want to leave. So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, you would think that Portland would be the obvious choice for Rick Carlisle, but like you said, if should Damian Lillard decide to tell management that he wants to be traded, there goes that team. But Rick Carlisle has options. So, like I said, Milwaukee would be the perfect fit should they lose this series to Brooklyn. But Mike Budenholzer, we don't know what he did with Atlanta a few years ago. It was kind of a smoke and mirrors. So that was when LeBron James came back to Cleveland the second time. Excuse me for shaking my screen for those of you watching. Um, we all know that those were good Atlanta teams, but they just couldn't get over the hump because they didn't have LeBron James. Cleveland did, Atlanta didn't. But now with Milwaukee, you're going from point A to point B. Now, if you're Milwaukee, now since you resigned Giannis Antetokounmpo before the season tipped off, you have the roster, but you need a coach to get you from point B to point C to take that team to the next level and bring that championship to Milwaukee for the first time since 1971. I think that Rick Carlisle would be the perfect coach for that Bucks team.
Like I said, that'd be a good fit. I think he could coach Giannis. He kind of take his game to a whole
Mm-hmm.
nother level. I mean, look, like I said, he'll have his pick of teams. There is no doubt. He definitely has the resume for it. So to have that, have that stature. So he'll definitely have his choice of teams. Like I said, Washington could probably be a good fit for him too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Beal and Westbrook. So it'll be very interesting to see where he goes. Like I said, the offseason NBA is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, as you're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Browns. We talk about coaching changes in the National Basketball Association. Lakeena, before we move on, I'll ask you, who you think would be the perfect candidate to replace Stan Van Gundy in New Orleans? I know Jason's kid's name's been thrown out there. He cannot take David Griffin's job as GM. That's for damn sure. But I know that he was a point guard, Hall of Fame point guard. Of course, Alonzo Ball's down there. Assuming that he doesn't leave, I'm talking about Alonzo Ball or gets traded or whatever. Jason Kidd would be the perfect coach for him. How do you see this all playing out? Or do you think
Yeah.
Sam Cassell could be a perfect candidate with now more jobs open?
It's hard to believe that he hasn't had a chance to have a job yet, right? I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
sort of weird. He's been an assistant for over a decade now, and it's sort of odd that he has not. It's got to be something he has not been able to get over that hump, get that first coaching job. Now, Teresa Witherspoon,
Mm-hmm.
who was a Hall of Fame player in her own right, there was rumors that they might just promote from within. They make her head coach. Like, there's definitely going to be some names that are going to be floated out there. Chauncey Billups' name has been thrown out there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, look, there's going to be a lot of the coaching carousel will continue, no doubt.
Yeah, just hope personally that hopefully Sam Cassell, even though the Clippers as of this recording is technically still in playoffs, hopefully he can get some interviews. But the Clippers continue on this road. He'll just have to wait his turn just a little bit longer. So Jason Kidd, he's still on the list as we mentioned before. Hopefully Sam Cassell, he'll be given more opportunities to get interviews. So I know he's been chomping at the bit for a long time. I know he's been assistant coach ever since his playing days came to an end about a decade ago. So he's worked under Doc Rivers for the majority of the time, and so he's working under Ty Lue now with the Clippers. So we'll see if Sam Cassell can get his chance. So it's going to be interesting. The carousel is always going round and round the NBA. So it should be interesting as we approach the end of the playoffs and as the summer goes along. Lakeena, let's move on to the world of football. RG3, i.e. Robert Griffin III, for those of you that want to know his government name. This comes to our friends from Awful Announcing. RG3 is drawing interest from ESPN and Fox, with both networks bidding for his services. There's still a possibility that the RG3 could return for his 8th season. The last couple of years, he's been backing up Lamar Jackson as a member of the Baltimore Ravens. After 3 seasons as a backup quarterback with Baltimore, as I just mentioned, RG3 could land with another team, or he can sign with one of these networks. As first reported by Outkick, Griffin recently auditioned for both ESPN and Fox Sports, and both networks were impressed by his showing. The New York Post, Andrew Marchand, followed up with a report by the network executive said that Griffin's audition was among the best they've ever seen. As a result, ESPN and Fox are engaged in a bidding war for RG3 services. According to Marchand, ESPN increased its offer to Griffin to overtake wherever interest Fox is showing. Continuing, known as a dual threat quarterback throughout his career, Griffin could also be a dual broadcaster threat, providing analysis for NFL and college football. As we continue here, ESPN obviously has more opportunities for Griffin, whether it's a game analysis, studio work, or appearances throughout the network program, including SportsCenter, Get Up, and College Football Live. But Fox also offers multiple platforms in addition to game broadcasts and pre- and post-game coverage, such as First Things First, Undisputed, The Herd with Colin Cowherd, and Speak for Yourself. Griffin hasn't drawn any reported interest from CBS, which has auditioned Alan Smith, which we talked about last week, Mark Sanchez, according to Marchand, and Joey Galloway. But CBS does not have to hire anyone to replace Rich Gannon on its roster of NFL game analysts, and doesn't offer as many college football opportunities nor studio platforms available at ESPN and Fox. Lakeena, this has been a trend for the last, I would say, 15 years, perhaps 20 years. If you're a former athlete, if you could communicate your message well and draw interest, especially in this social media age with clickbait going on and instant reaction. If you're a former athlete who's popular, that it can articulate well and provide analysis that no one else has ever heard, or you can present it well, you'll get a job.
Well, if you like Andrew Marchand said in his reporting with RG3 that execs were telling him that his audition was the best they'd ever seen, or one of the best they'd ever seen. So he could definitely cover both pro and college. And there's definitely, I guess ESPN has amped up their offer to him. Now, he can easily go back to playing at Baltimore because he's a very popular guy in the locker room there. But if he decides, I think ESPN would probably be the best place for him, since he can do a college game and do studio work. He can do pro and perhaps maybe do some weekly appearances like Get Up, and maybe perhaps make an appearance on Monday Night Countdown. Look, I think he's a very smart guy. He's very articulate, and if you heard him when he won the Heisman Trophy, he sounded like he could be a guy that has a future in television media. And this is a guy who's well respected around the league. So I'm not surprised that these networks are vying for his services. I think, he can definitely break down he's done some things with Bleacher Report where he's done like the quarterback and stuff. So, and don't be surprised if CBS decides to give him a tryout, even though as of right now they haven't. I'm sure they probably heard the buzz and maybe we should bring him on and see what he can do. So, I'm interested to see what he does. I mean, like I said, he's only 31, so he may want to go at it one more time. So I'm sure those jobs still going to be waiting for him. But, I could definitely see him going that route, television, should he choose to, which I'm sure that's probably what he wants to do.
Yeah, he can get that Michael Strahan deal if he decides to come back to play one more season. Ja will be waiting for him at the end of the season if he decides to go back and play for Baltimore, or whoever wants to sign up for his services. The same thing happened with Drew Brees last year. Remember last year he came back. Of course, he's retired now. He's going to do Notre Dame football for NBC. I'm sure he's going to do some stuff for Sunday Night Football as well. So RG3, like you mentioned, he's an articulate guy. He could do both if he goes to either Fox or ESPN. Me personally, I would like to see him at ESPN, but if Fox takes him, they usually take chances on guys that are getting to the business. You see what they're doing with LeVar Arrington, Antoine Walker, and so if Fox wants to take a chance on RG3, they can go do so. Look what they're doing with Michael Vick. They had him on. They still have him on the Fox NFL kickoff. That's the pregame to the main pregame show on Sundays during the NFL season. So RG3 has his options, so he's going to be okay no matter what happens. So I can't wait to see him on television.
Yeah, he definitely has a personality for it. And also, too, apparently, Fox has offered that spot that's open for them. They've offered a spot that was vacated by Chris Spillman to Mark Sanchez. Now, he hasn't decided whether he's going to take it yet. So I'm sure ESPN wants to keep him. So they may want to maybe bump some money up, maybe offer him to let him do a game maybe once a week, because that's something he really wants to do. So we'll see what happens with that as well.
Yes, we'll see what happens. In other sports media news, Cari Champion and Kenny Mayne, who were both let go by ESPN over the last few months, they'll be teaming up to do a special project together. This coming to also from our good friends at Awful Announcing. The delayed 2020 Tokyo Olympics are about a month away, and we're still learning about NBC's coverage plans. This will be the first Olympics since Peacock's inception, their streaming service network. And the streaming service is going to be a big role. And this week we learned that it will include a nightly highlight show hosted by Cari Champion and Kenny Mayne. So we continue here. Cari Champion and Kenny Mayne doing a nightly Olympics show is a fairly perfect fit. Both have plenty of sports center experience. After all, it's hard to imagine the duo delivering anything less than entertaining and informative broadcast. Cari Champion left ESPN last year, while Kenny Mayne was dropped just a few weeks ago. Considering how long they overlap, it's kind of wild they haven't worked together until now. It's a potentially vital one, too. The Olympics are massive, and most people won't exactly be watching all the coverage throughout the day, or even if the network coverage in the all of the network coverage in the evening. Bringing the two high-profile former ESPN talents from Bristol to Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut, where NBC Sports is located, it's a logical move, not even just for one Olympic run. Lakeena, I know Fox has been the big joke of taking former ESPN talent and giving it a big stage over at that network. It looks like NBC is becoming that as well. But Kenny Mayne, we know he was there for 27 years, and we know he's known for his wit, for his delivery. I think he's going to do well there. Cari Champion, of course, she's been hopping around ever since SportsCenter. She did the social justice program called the Arena for Turner Sports. And I know her and Jamel here, I believe that program is still on the air on Vice. I forgot what that program is called. Forgive me. But I know she's been hopping around doing some additional work. So those two great talents have a great opportunity ahead of them. And I think, they're going to do well. At least NBC is getting experience because we know the Olympics are huge. A lot of people watch it from around the world. And so it's going to be interesting how this program is presented. Will it be presented in a SportsCenter style, or will it be presented in an entertaining style? Will it be presented in a hard news-like style? I'm just interested to see how this nightly highlight show will be presented.
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, it's all going to be on the Peacock network, I guess. So, unless you actually have the app, you can actually, that'll be the only way you can be able to check it out. But I mean, I like this. I mean, look, they've got a lot of different people from the different networks that are going to be part of their broadcasting crew. The interesting thing is going to be that how many people will be able to go to Tokyo, or how many will be kind of on site in their Stamford, Connecticut studios. I'm talking about the NBC studios, NBC Sports studios, I should say. Excuse me. So, yeah, I mean, I think I can definitely see these two, meshing well together. Like, it's hard to believe that they have not, when Cari was over at, in LA, because they're both in LA, this is gonna be their first time working together. Yeah. So it's kind of wild that that's never happened. But I can definitely, I can definitely see them kind of meshing well together. And, they got, their personalities are very similar. So it'll be interesting what kind of show it's gonna be. Is it gonna be like the old, Olympic highlight shows from back in the day, kind of straightforward, or they're gonna talk about some social stuff that's gonna be happening in Tokyo? Especially with all the stuff we were talking about it a couple of weeks back with the Olympics. There's a lot of hesitation in Tokyo to have the Olympics at all. So, but you got the Olympic trials going on right now in swimming and in track and field. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how this goes between the two of them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, and we talked about what's going on the track, as they say, for the Olympics. How many broadcasters you mentioned they're going to go over there, and how will the athletes be treated over there? I'm sure many of those athletes are already vaccinated. If they're vaccinated, will they be staying in a particular area for those athletes that chose not to get vaccinated, will they stay in particular area? Usually they stay in the village, but will there be separated between vaccinated and unvaccinated athletes? I'm sure there will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
and that's going to be the wild card here too. Are they going to have different sections for folks who are unvaccinated and, athletes who are vaccinated? I'm sure, like, it depends on the country, right? I'm sure here in the U.S., I'm sure they're going to make sure at least most of their athletes are vaccinated. I don't know how it's going to be in the other countries. That's going to be like the big wild card. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes, because are there going to be different sections? But I don't know. That's definitely going to be the $1 million question.
Yeah, hopefully it's not disastrous. Hopefully it'll go without a hitch. We know I'm sure there's going to be a few athletes that are going to not participate in some events because if they catch this virus, that's going to happen. Hopefully it's not an outbreak, because Japan is handling differently than we are here in the United States. So the question is, like you said, how many athletes are vaccinated, how many are not? Will you separate the two? Common sense would tell me it will, especially if you want these games to go out with I'm not going to say without a hitch, but with little damage as possible. That's going to be the $1 million question. How are they going to handle this, and how are they going to handle? I don't know if there's still even going to be any spectators. If there are, it's going to be very few.
It's good. I think it's going to be like local spectators, right? I read somewhere they're not going to let anybody from outside Japan, spectators to come in. So that's probably what's going to end up happening.
Yep. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Cindy Brown. We're heading down the home stretch here. We talked about this last week. Lakeena, Russell Westbrook producing a documentary based on the STEM program, based from his hometown in Los Angeles. Second-year guard Ja Morant from the Memphis Grizzlies will produce another docu-series called Promised Land. This also comes to our friends from Awful Announcing. Promised Land docuseries gives a refreshing look at Ja Morant's rise from overlooked talent to NBA star. Morant is impossible not to root for while watching this Crackle docuseries. The Memphis Grizzlies earned the 8th seed for this year's NBA playoffs, being the San Antonio Spurs in the play-in tournament to win the Western Conference final postseason bid that provided an opportunity for a wider TV audience to watch the Grizzlies' rising star Ja Morant. Memphis shot the top-seeded Utah Jazz a game over their first-round playoff series, but eventually lost in 5 games. However, those who want to see more of Morant have an opportunity to follow the high-flying guard off the court in a 6-part docuseries for Crackle titled Promised Land. Part 2 of the series, comprised of episodes 4 through 6, launched on June 17th. For those who see 6-part docuseries and believe that's too much for a commitment, each episode is no longer than a half an hour. 2 of them last 20 minutes. Altogether, Promised Land runs 2 hours and 25 minutes. Regardless of whether you watch it in chunks or in one sitting, Morant is a phenomenal talent with an upbringing and support system that helped his ascent to the NBA, and that story is compelling to watch. Director Destin DeBory, if I pronounce that correctly, begins Morant's story as he waits to be selected in the 2019 NBA draft. As basketball fans know, Memphis selected him number 2 overall out of Murray State, a mid-major school not typically known for producing NBA prospects. With the number 1 pick, Zion Williamson battling injuries and limited to 24 games, Morant dazzled in their first season that resulted him in winning the NBA's Rookie of the Year award. But the documentary first goes back to chronicle Morant's development, tutored by his father T. From the start, DeBory establishes that this isn't a story we become accustomed to seeing, with a promising talent emerging from a broken home or a father mercilessly coaching his son to achieve his potential. T. Morant, Ja's father, gave up his own basketball career to raise his son, and if he intended to live his dreams vicariously through his son, he certainly doesn't come across that way. T and his mother, Jamie, might be the true stars of the first part of Promised Land, realizing Ja's potential and providing everything he needs to succeed. We see father coaching son on the court built in the backyard with cones and chairs set up as obstacles. Blocking pads build strength and toughness. Tractor tires help develop explosiveness. T might be a tough coach, but he teaches with patience and thought. And Ja is an exceptional student who wants to get better and motivated by being overlooked. Lakeena, as we talked about before, these today's generation of athletes and storytellers, that they're not waiting for the big studios to come reach out to them. We're seeing that with LeBron James. I know he's promoting Space Jam, which will be coming out around this time next month. But these athletes today, they're taking advantage of this opportunity with social media, producing it on their own. Yes, they have more funds to help them get their product out there, but they're creating their own narrative, creating telling their own stories through their own eyes and ears. And so you don't have to wait for, like we were growing up, you don't have to wait for a big studio to give you opportunity to do it. They're creating it on their own, and with their names and platforms, they're letting people to come to them to check out their products.
And I think that's sort of the way of the future. We talked about it a couple of days ago with Russell Westbrook and his new project. I think, look, if you read, if you know about Ja Morant's story, and Sid alluded to it. I mean, ESPN did like a short E60 short about it. I mean, kind of came out of nowhere. He wasn't highly recruited, and look at him now. I mean, look, I think that his story is sort of the type of story that I think people will gravitate towards. And look at it, look, it's only a 20-30 minute, mini docu-series, if you will. So it's not a big investment. It's nice and quick, and I'm sure they're going to do different sections where his childhood and his college career at Murray State to now his career right now in the NBA with the Grizzlies. So I think, look, it's a nice investment. It's going to be widely available. So, and like you said, he's not, they're not waiting for the big studios to call. You can make your own now. You got the technology, you got the audience to do it now. As long as, look, if you get a big enough audience, the big studios will call. That's just, sometimes that's
Yeah.
how it is. So I like this. I'm looking forward to seeing this, and also to his relationship with his dad, because his dad kind of raised him as a single father, kind of. So
Yeah.
that that aspect of it is really, especially with Father's Day coming up, tomorrow.
Hmm.
So this will be a nice little tribute to him, and kind of he put his career on hold to help raise John, kind of help him, develop him to be the player that he is and the person that he is now.
Yeah, as we talked about before, like, and we talk about music also on this program. We always reference to behind the music and unsung, about the artists that we grew up listening to. Today's athletes are kind of doing the same thing, doing it on their own, telling their own stories instead of waiting for somebody else to tell it for them. So this is a great thing, as I say, especially in this social media age that we're in right now. It is great for these athletes to get their own stories out there, tell the way they want to tell, instead of somebody misinterpreting what they're saying. And they had to go defend why they say it the way they said, fight off cancel culture and fight out all these other distracting elements. So
Yeah.
this is great, and they can tell their stories their own way in their own words, and you don't have to have too many people standing in your way. It's just you and your story, and the way you produce it, and just the way you tell it. It can be relatable to the average Joe out there.
And I think that can only help still with today's athletes, right? I mean, you can now
Yeah.
you can develop your own projects, you can develop your own like
Hmm.
biography, and or if you have like a movie, if you want to tell a story about your hometown, like what Russell Westbrook did with Crenshaw,
Hmm.
California. I mean, the sky's the limit now, and you got the technology to do it. And like I said, if it's successful, the big studios will call. So that's just
Yeah.
usually how it is. It's sort of a cause and effect there.
Yeah, and I also like too that how these athletes and other entertainers are owning their own content as well, and just be smart about your business. You don't let these studios overtake your stuff, because once they do, we heard and seen stories, Lakina, that especially with music artists in particular, you sign over your royalties and your masters. These record companies own it. You can't do anything about it because they own it.
Yeah.
And now I know it's slightly different with the movies, but I know if you tell an autobiography, if you sell the rights to the movie studios, they can do whatever they want. But with these athletes now, they can do it for themselves as long as you have full 100% ownership. You're in control. You should be okay.
I think that's peace of mind, right? So I think definitely,
Hmm.
have that sort of like your control of your own, like material, your own assets. I
Mm-hmm.
think that can only help, with the psyche, especially. So, because we've seen some of this is where, folks have, filed for bankruptcy because they didn't read the fine print of their contract, or they didn't
Mm-hmm.
fight for a better contract when it first came into the scene. So I think controlling your own and doing your own, as Whoopi Goldberg would say, could recreate your own. Don't
Yeah.
depend on other studios. Don't depend on, Lin-Manuel or Miranda. Don't put all the onus on him. If you see something that's not being represented, because people were getting on him about, this movie In the Heights, where it doesn't represent a certain group of people.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that, okay, you bring that group in, but then there's another group that's going to be complaining that they're not being represented. So if you don't like what you're seeing, create your own.
Yep. And as Bill Cosby, I know he's not popular at the moment, but as Bill Cosby and Oprah Winfrey both said a long time ago, please sign your own checks. Don't let anybody else sign your own checks, because if you do, there's going to be a problem. And so we'll leave it on that note for today's episode of the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Thank you to Lakeena McGee for toughing it out for this last segment. Go get your voice rested up, Lakeena. I know you're gonna enjoy this great weekend of sports action. Of course, the White Sox, locally here in Chicago, the White Sox are taking on the Houston Astros as we speak down in Houston. The Cubs are battling the Marlins here at Wrigley Field, so it's going to be another good weekend. Of course, the Olympics are a month away. We wrapped up mandatory mini camp for most of these NFL teams, including our own Chicago Bears. As you mentioned, Lakeena, the Arlington Heights story is just getting started. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. By now, it's going to pick up some steam. When, we don't know, but this is just getting started. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Well, the weird thing about it is that now that, with everything, now that it's kind of starting to hit the fan, is this being used as sort of like motivation for the city to sort of say, you know what, hey, we may leave if you guys don't step up your stuff here. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I think this story is far from over, I think.
All right, but this episode is about over. And before we close out, go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Well, yeah, just to close out, I mean, you got the U.S. Open coming up this weekend in Torrey Pines. Okay. The great thing about it is that we get some prime time golf. Yay. So it'll be interesting to see what you got. Dave Brooks Koepka could probably be a factor. He has two of these. Bryson DeChambeau, I mean, he's the defending champion. We'll see what he does. John Rahm, after what happened with a couple of weeks back, at the Memorial, he had to pull out because of, he had a COVID test. He tested positive, so I think he's going to be extra motivated. We'll see if Phil can make the cut. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun, as the US Open usually is. Father's Day, it's going to be on Torrey Pines. So we get some prime time golf. So it should be a whole lot of fun in the US Open. So.
Yes, we'll be remiss if we didn't wish everybody, every father out there around the world, happy Father's Day, which is coming up tomorrow on Sunday. So happy Father's Day to all the dads from around the world.
Absolutely.
You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, right here on YouTube at WARR Media. Once again, at WARR Media. Videos drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, videos drop every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube at WARR Media. You can catch the audio version of this podcast at WARR on Anchor. The audio drops every Tuesday and Saturday. Once again, every Tuesday and Saturday at WARR on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. Just type in those search engine boxes, WARR on Anchor. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And you can follow us on all social media platforms, including right here on YouTube. There's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WARR Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes. For Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. This has been the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Young lady, rest that voice. We'll see and hear you on Tuesday, fully healed and rested. Enjoy your sports weekend, everyone. It's going to be hot across the country. Take care of yourselves. Stay cool and keep your cool. We don't want you doing anything stupid. Until Tuesday, take care of yourselves. Until next time, holla!